family. This is giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV as I like to call it. I am your host, Melissa Krechler. Today we're going to be talking about spirit guides, and I'm super excited to get into this one. Our sponsor today is the Butterfly Lotus Company. Want to learn how to get in touch with your spirit guides, want to learn what your spiritual gifts and abilities are, or would you like to check out their signature program, the Spiritual Empowerment Trinity? It's a 3-part program that's going to help you build your spiritual foundations and create a happier, healthier spiritual journey. So, and you can start with that through their link, the Introduction to Spiritual Gifts and Abilities. Go and check that out. Link in the description. As for that, I am Melissa Krechler. I'm your host, as always. And I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura West. I'm a registered nurse, psychic medium, energy healer, author, podcast host, etc. I'm happy to be here.
All the titles we subscribe to, right?
Yeah.
I think exactly. We get overwhelmed with all the titles we subscribe to. So you and I were talking on the pre-screening, and we were talking about spirituality, and we were talking about mediumship and intuition, and again, all those titles and all those roles. And during that process, we got into spirit guides and signs and symbols and asking for help. And a lot of people who are just joining the spiritual community, are just awakening into their spiritual journey, don't really have an understanding of what that looks like. We're constantly getting signs and symbols. We're getting spirit guide messages. We're getting animal spirit messengers. We're getting, there's so many options and opportunities available to us to connect with the other side or connect with the universe to say, help me, help me, please. So that's what we're talking about today. What do you think your favorite part about spirit guides is?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, for me personally, from what I've experienced with spirit guides, I think what I love most about them, in general, is how they have lived lives on Earth, and so they can empathize with us, and that's one of the qualities or factors that differentiates them from angels or maybe some other potential members of our soul team. So it allows them to empathize with our situation. So it's not always just happy-go-lucky all the time. Oh, you're going to be fine. Everything's great. It's going to be like, oh, that does suck. I've been there before, or whatever the case may be. So I think that's what I really gravitate towards with spirit guides, because it's also being human. They're kind of like a bridge almost to the other side, and it just feels more tangible and easier to perhaps process working with them versus maybe other members of the soul team who, for myself at least, feel a bit more into the other side and maybe have less of a foot in this side, or have at least experienced it. So I think that's probably one of my favorite factors about them.
Absolutely. I love it because we talk about ascended masters, and our purpose on Earth is to experience, right? Because the other side, there is none of this on the other side. There is no strife. There is no struggle. And this is my opinion, right? On the other side, I don't believe in heaven and hell. I believe in the other side, how it's love and light. It is, just this place where we go and we download, and we're being, right? We're being in that moment. And when we come to Earth, our purpose on Earth is to experience. And in order to get to ascended master status, you have to go through multiple lifetimes and experience multiple different things, right? So our spirit guides on the other side, I call them our spirit dream team, because it's not just spirit guides, it's our loved ones, it's our animals, there's so many on that at the other side. So mine's my spirit dream team. But with that, they've experienced what, we pick and choose before we come here. We pick and choose who we want help from. And it's because they've experienced what we're going through. Maybe they have insight into what we're going through. Maybe they're the people who are going to kick us in the ass on the way and say, remember who you are. You look at my husband and I, we were having a Star Wars marathon. We're going through Star Wars again. And we're watching the movies, and even in the movies, right? The ones who have passed, who have come before, come back, and they guide you, and they speak to you, and they give you wisdom and courage and empowerment. And I think that's my favorite part of that spirit dream team is they're there to help you. They're there to empower and encourage you and maybe give you that little swift kick in the ass that you need to keep moving forward and kind of realize what's going on. But a lot of people don't know how to access that spirit dream team or even what that looks like. And you and I can give them insights. There are guided meditations that you can use. There is my favorite one, the one that I was taught and the one that I teach is, picturing a safe room, like a beautiful safe room that only you can get to, right? And it's in your mind's eye and you picture this room and you picture the color and the feeling and the atmosphere. And mine is like a crawl space. And I don't like crawl spaces, which is funny, but it's like an attic crawl space. And you have to climb these like old school ladder in the wall stairs that are literally, you can't tell they're there unless you're looking at the wall, and they're like ladder stairs, right? And you have to get up there and it's, really up high. And in there, it's all grays. It's all grays and very soft grays and muted grays and just comfort and creams. And when I get in there, that's when I invite them in. They're not just automatically there. I have to invite them in, right? Because I'm in control of that space. And when I do that, it gives me the ability to go, hi, how are you? Right. And we get that back and forth. And again, that's how I was taught. So that's how I teach. How do you suggest that people connect with their spirit guides?
Yeah. So I would say guided meditations would be one of the suggestions. Absolutely. I think that that's a really great way. And I love that you teach inviting them in, because it's important to feel the difference of what your energy feels like versus the invitation and then your spirit guide's energy and what that feels like in your space. So I love that you actually differentiate the two. And I also like the idea of, we have to invite them in. It's important that people know they have free will and free choice. But the caveat to that is don't forget to invite them in and ask them for help and things like that. That for me is a great way. I first met my spirit guide in a dream. I find that dreams are a nice way, especially if maybe the idea of sitting in a meditation is difficult, or if you're like me and you're like the idea of potentially seeing your guide while you're awake is a little bit scary, because I get stuff like that, or at least I did. So for me, in my dream was much more doable. I also say that download writing or channel writing is another good way to get to know your spirit guide and to ask those questions. And that could take some time, that process, but I feel like guided meditations would be probably number one if that's something that you're able to do. And just really whatever work you can do to hone in on your intuition. And when I say intuition, I mean like that gut feeling, that knowing, the aha moments, whatever that feels like for you, the listener or the viewer, that's what you need to strengthen. Because what I've been told from my guide, his name's Jason, he's like my main guide of my many. But what I've been told by him is that they use our very physical faculties to communicate with us. That's why it's a gut feeling. That's why it's like a sudden knowing or just a feeling, that we get. They use our physical faculties. So to know what that is for you, you'll start to strengthen that understanding and that communication with our guides. And honestly, for me, at least, the best way that I was able to do that was through meditation. And I like to tell people and be realistic with people because I know what it's like to be busy and to have a full-time job and a family that you're still taking care of while still trying to cultivate and nurture your spirituality and maybe relationships with those of your dream team, which I call like soul team, same thing. So even if you're just doing like anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes a day, or most days, is going to help you to just sit quietly, quiet the clutter in your mind, or learn how to let it pass through. And by doing so, it just clears out the channel that our guides can use on the other side to start to communicate with us. And it may or may not be obvious. For me, it still sounds like my voice, as if I'm reading a book. So it's not my words, it's not my thoughts, but it's my voice.
Mhm.
So it's similar to that. It could be images that you get, sudden knowings, all of a sudden, or feeling, just so many different ways that they can communicate with us. Very similar to when we're doing mediumship readings with past loved ones. It's all very much the same. So learning to differentiate when it's them or not. But there are many ways. It's just a matter of finding one that works well for you and sort of sticking with it and then letting it cultivate from there.
Yep. I love how you mentioned, what was it again? You mentioned something, dreaming. That was what, and that's how my mediumship actually started, because I would always say, if I see you in real life, like if I'm awake and I see a spirit, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Like we're not doing and that's how my mediumship started, because I was so petrified and terrified. I was attacked at 12 years old by a negative entity. And I don't believe in evil spirits. A negative entity is something completely different. It is a traumatic event that happens. It's created by energy. It is an energetic being. It is not actually like a spirit of a past loved one. And I was living in an apartment building that had a murder in it. We had multiple murders behind our apartment building. And I found out that entity was residing in that apartment suite. So my whole family kind of dealt with it at that point. But during that process, I was very much afraid. I had a lot of stuff going on. So seeing anything was traumatizing at that point, right? Because of the fear, all of that. That's how my mediumship started. And what a lot of people don't know is when you're connecting to the other side, it's like using your imagination. And this is why kids are so gifted, because when somebody tells you that you can, if you imagine the room that you're meeting somebody in, right? And you're relaxed and you're in a calm, just calm state of being, you can imagine or picture that room in your mind's eye. That is where you see or where you experience majority of your spiritual gifts and abilities, is in your mind's eye, that imaginative state or that imaginative, picture that's in your head. Now, absolutely, have I seen spirits in person? Yes, I absolutely have. And it's entertaining every time. One of my favorite ones was this little short old lady. She was my client's grandmother. And just curly hair, and this is really entertaining, but she was something else.
Wow.
But again, it comes down to that mind's eye, right? And understanding and being comfortable enough that if you're sitting, you don't have to necessarily meditate. If you're sitting and you start to, daydream, that's your mind's eye. That's your mind's eye connecting you to something more, connecting you to somebody more. And it's a really amazing state of being to be in, where you can, I can sit here, have a full conversation with you, and that room is opening up, right? Because I'm allowing it to. And I could have anybody come in and go, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so's, whoever. So building those gifts and abilities and being able to connect to your spirit guides, that kind of opens that door for you to build and create on and expand upon all of your other gifts and abilities. Now, a lot of people who are new to that space are, and I work with newbies because I love newbies. It can be scary, and that's okay, right? Connecting with your spirit guides can seem absolutely terrifying. And a lot of people, one of the questions that I get asked is, or I uncover, because not many people will ask this question. If you awaken spiritually, what is going to happen at that point? Am I going to open myself up to everything else? Am I going to open myself up to all of those fears? You and I, Laura and I both had fears, right? Where we didn't want to see things in person because it was terrifying at first, right? Because you look at the movies, you look at all of these movies, all of these TV shows, paranormal activity that promote the fear of spirituality. And there isn't that fear. We don't have, once you open up to that idea, there really isn't a lot of fear, and you are always in control. And that's what you and I teach, right? That's what you and I embody, is the control, the boundaries, the respect of, this is my choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, with the progress of this journey that I've been on, it's been really important for me to really cultivate that relationship with my spirit guides and build this relationship of trust. It feels very much like with Jason. For me, it feels like brotherly, not paternal, but more like a sibling, but very comfortable for me. And I like that. And what I like about having built my relationship with Jason and other spirit guide members of my team is that I bring them along with me to every other thing that I dabble in when it comes to working with spirit on the other side. So when I started to dabble in mediumship with past loved ones, I made sure Jason was there with me. I said, okay, Jason, I'm going to have you speak to them and tell me what to say. It made me feel much more comfortable. And then when I realized that connecting with past loved ones was very similar to how I connected with Jason, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Just stay here, be here for me, but I can do this. And then I carried that over to crossing over work, which I never thought I would want to do because that is kind of scary. It's basically like that, people who have had like hauntings, whether or not you believe in that, these experiences are real for these
Yeah,
people,
absolutely.
so it's helping those spirits cross over. And to me, they're low vibing at first. So it can be scary. They may present in their low vibing energy. Maybe they're still harboring fear or anger, and those can present, because I use my mind's eye a lot. I'm clairvoyant in that way. So when I see them, it can be scary looking. It's not the normal angelic, beautiful being that I'm used to seeing. So having my guides there with me, knowing that, okay, Jason, I ask him, what do I do next? And I know what to do next because I get the answer. Like I just know all of a sudden what to do next. And that took time to cultivate that language or that communication with him, to know and to trust, because I follow through then. So I've been able to dabble in other aspects of spirituality that I probably never would have before, because I have my guides. You can do it with your angels. Maybe you have a past loved one, like a grandmother who was paramount in your spiritual journey, whoever, Jesus, whoever, have them with you as you journey through your spiritual journey, so that you can say yes and open up the doors to other possibilities and callings that you may have, but as a human sounds scary. And I do want to comment too, to piggyback on what you were saying about, that we're in control and everything like that. Humans are much scarier and more of a threat to us than spirit ever will be, because they're in, especially when we have scarier experiences, they're in our realm, in this physical realm, which we are in control of. It's the people out there that you have to worry about. So I'm learning that as I go.
Absolutely. And that was one of the first lessons that I had to learn, was because I felt that I had been attacked by that entity, and that I had gone through that horrifying experience that I had to work through before I was able to open up to my gifts and abilities.
Sure.
And through that process, it was scary. And I opened up and I figured out who my spirit guide, my main one, his name is Richard.
Love it.
And he's an older gentleman. And it's like, not like when I was growing up, my mom had a friend named Richard. And it's interesting because they're not the same person, but they're similar in mannerisms. So I think he kind of took on a persona of somebody that I actually liked.
Makes sense.
But again, I had to go through that process in order to open up. And once I started to open up, the knowledge and the downloads and the lifetimes, I have had multiple lifetimes. I married my twin flame in this lifetime. I can recall multiple lifetimes with him as well, somewhere where we were together and somewhere we weren't. And throughout this whole process, it's given me a better insight into humanity, into mental health, emotional health, physical health. It's mind-blowing the amount of information that you can receive and access when you learn how to access your own self. And part your spirit guides can be a part of that. And if you believe in spirit guides or don't believe in spirit guides, that's completely up to you. You get to choose what your spiritual foundations are, right? That's a part of everybody's spiritual journey is, who am I? What do I believe? What don't I believe? I don't believe in angels. But I don't fault anybody or disagree with anybody who does, right? Because that's not spirituality. And one of the things I'd like to mention on this episode, because I just mentioned it and I'm drawn to it now, is people believe, I want people to understand, not even just believe, but I want people to understand that spirituality is a choice. Spirituality is an individualistic choice. It is a way of living that allows unconditional love, unconditional support, unconditional knowledge, unconditional opportunities, or just the experiences that we go through. It is a way of living. And it's not a way of living that should ever be, it has to be this way, or it has to be that way. Spirituality does not hold has tos.
That's 100% true. I always tell people that, the spirit world is limitless.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talk about spirit guides and some people may not resonate with that. And that's, like you said, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I identify them as spirit guides because in my human mind and in my physical experience, that resonates with me. Does that mean that they aren't there? No, it's very individualized, like you said, and there's really there's not too many rights and wrongs. It's every experience is so individual. That's why it's really hard for me to ever say definitives when I talk about spirit guides, when I talk about anything. And I always refer to, well, my experience has been, or from when I've done readings, I can't say it's like this or that. I did say that Jason says we use our physical faculties because he told me that. But there are people who may not get those physical sensations with intuition, and that's okay too. So there's no right or wrong per se. But like you said, it's just all about love. And, the word spirituality has the word spirit in it. So we very much connect with more entities on the other side than maybe other religions may. We see this conglomerate of support that's on the other side. And the other side, it really does become a part of your everyday, and it really does get interwoven into all the things that you do, whether it's work or home life or whatever. Spirituality just becomes a part of all of it because you realize that spirit is a part of all of it. And you realize that every decision you make, every step you take on your journey is for this higher purpose of for your soul. So, everything is related in the way that it's meant to be. And, we don't downplay anybody's experience, even if they're with a particular religion, like that's their truth. And we don't disregard that. We're not here to judge or be bigots. And then, how do we differ from anyone else at that point? So, it's very individualized. It can be very individualized.
And see, and I love that you said that for me, there is definitives. But they're my definitives.
Exactly.
Right? I can stand wholly, truthfully, and wholeheartedly in my beliefs, but I still stand in yours as well, right? So I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. I did when I was younger. I went through a religious background. But I got to a point where I made that decision for myself, and the rest of my family absolutely believe in God. My 21-year-old son goes to church, and I'm like, right on. How did it go? How did it feel today? I'm still, I think that's one of the biggest lessons of spirituality for me, going back to what I said earlier, is it is inclusive, right? I don't have to agree with what you agree with to love and honor and respect you. I don't have to agree with your path, your decisions, because it's yours, right? As long as it's not intentionally hurting me, as long as you're not stabbing me with a knife in the hand because I'm taking the last cookie, that's the intentional part of it. And I can walk up to people on the street and not judge them where they're at, because hey, you're where you need to be, or you don't have to stay where you're at. What do you want, right? And the spirituality, again, is just such an amazing aspect of this life, of this journey. And again, spiritual guides or spirit guides. And okay, so let's jump back into spirit guides here. Animal spirit guides.
Yes.
I love spirit guides, especially when they're animal messengers. So I have a book. I don't even know where it is right now. Oh, I put it away, so it's up there. So I am a huge, huge supporter of animal spirit guides. And when I was pregnant with my 3 children, I have a bonus. So yes, I do have 4 kids, but I birthed 3 of them. When I was pregnant with each one of my children, I had a different animal come up. So with my oldest son, it was tigers, and it was Tigger. I bought everything Tigger. I had white tigers throughout my whole house. With my oldest daughter, it was Piglet. So I had pigs everywhere. Every piece of clothing she owned had pigs on it, some way, shape, or form. And then my youngest daughter, it was owls. Everything was owls. And after I had them, while I still hold love for those animals, I'm not obsessed with those animals anymore. And as I awakened to my spiritual journey, I went and looked at the meaning, or I identified the meaning of those animals. And those are my children's totems. Those are my children's spirit animals. And when I read them, it completely gave me insight. It's like using a human design chart or an astrological birth chart. The amount of detail it gave me, or depth it gave me into my children, that helped me connect with them. It helped me understand how to talk to them, how to raise them, how to work with them. And when you figure the stuff like that out, it's quite amazing. Your spirit guides help you do that, right? They give you that insight. And like I said, it's just so powerful to think, oh, if I go and research, the meaning of a white tiger, or a tiger in general, it describes my son.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So I think intuition, going back to why it's so important to really start to hone in on your own intuition, is because there are animal guides like that, but then there are also animals as signs that spirit guides or loved ones can send. So knowing the difference really is going to depend on, well, what does it feel like to you? And go with that first feeling. And that's why the intuition part is so important. And I love when that happens, because I feel like whether it's an animal guide or a sign of an animal from your spirit guides, if you look it up, and I just Google, it sounds like you have a book, but I just Google, and yeah. And you just kind of go wherever you are intuitively guided. So again, intuition is really important. And I feel like for the most part, messages can be very similar, or what resonates with you can maybe also help you to determine if it was a sign, or if it is something like a totem, which is like the animal that kind of stays with them their whole life. Right. So and kind of, offers them the guidance. And so there are meditations that you can do to meet your animal guides. There's, again, how do you know? They just kind of keep popping up. In your case, they're all over the place, but it's like, they just may pop up, or every time you see an animal or even an insect, and then you think, oh, I wonder if that's from grandpa who passed, or gosh, is that my spirit guide sending me the sign that I asked for? If you have that thought, that's a yes. Like automatically, if that's your thought, you associate it with whoever, then that is the sign from them. And that's, again, going back to communicating, that's how subtle it can be. And that's why learning to trust your intuition, trust those hits that you get, follow through. And if you start to notice, like, say, a praying mantis is just coming to mind, and you think, oh, I wonder if that's from grandpa, look up praying mantis and see, or, take note of that. If you start to notice more praying mantises, things like that, because that will also help to continue to validate your intuition and to strengthen it as well.
It's funny that you would say praying mantis. I saw one yesterday on a movie. And it really stuck out. Again, another one of those things that really stuck out. For me, robins. Every spring I see robins when they come back after the winter. And that was my grandma. My grandmother and I would constantly fight about who saw the first robin of the year.
Oh, perfect.
And so my husband now has taken on that role. And this spring, he messaged me. He was in the garage and he's like, guess what I just saw? I'm like, what? He goes, a robin. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Not nice. I don't want to talk to you. But again, that was that connection of I'm here with you, right? I see you. I love you. I'm here with you. And right now we have a wild animal roosting at our house. And every day it's gone for the day. And then every evening she comes back every night and sleeps on our deck for the evening. And for me, that's a sign, an absolute amazing sign. But I'm going to show her to you guys because I took a really good picture of her last night.
A turkey?
Wild turkey.
Oh.
So just random wild turkey has been on the top of my deck for the last 2 weeks.
Wow. I see. I would take that as a sign too, because that's not usual.
No, right? I woke up one morning and I actually searched it that morning because it was 7:00 in the morning and my window was open. We weren't having I'm in Canada, and right now we're just coming out of a heat wave. And where I am anyway. And so I wake up, my window's open, and all of a sudden I hear, it's like, what is that? Like, I'm in the city, right? And so I look out I jump out of bed, I look out the window, and there is a female and a male turkey walking across the street. And I'm like, honey, look. And I showed my husband. So obviously I Googled it, I grabbed the book, and I'm like, what does it mean? And then we kept seeing her. And then all of a sudden, my husband, he calls me outside one night and he's like, there is a big bird of some kind on our deck. And he couldn't see it. All he could see was the tail. And her tail looked interesting because it didn't necessarily look like a normal turkey tail, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what he saw.
Oh, like it's sticking over the edge.
Yeah. And so he's like, what is that? Right? Like, where is that? And so I, of course, being me, come outside and I walk through the deck and I look through the paneling and I start laughing because it's the turkey. And we've seen her, then we saw her again. And then 2 nights ago or 3 days ago, they started work in our front yard. And I went outside because they rang the doorbell. I went outside and she's walking around my cars. I'm like, what are you doing? My husband later that night says, oh, I've seen droppings on the deck. And I'm like, okay. So that night I look out my bedroom window and there's the turkey sleeping on the deck. And so last night my son is sitting outside and I get a text message and he goes, Mom, the turkey's back. And so we figured out that, yeah, she's found safety in our deck every night. So absolutely a sign, because who thinks wild turkeys would be roosting on, somebody's house?
So when you looked up the meaning for turkey, did it resonate?
It did. I can't remember currently what it means. I would have to grab the book, but it did resonate at that point. And I will look again because you're right. There is definitely a sign in there. And over the last couple weeks, even just this past, the last couple weeks, I've noticed some transformation happening within my family dynamic.
Oh,
And in that, having that extra guidance is definitely supportive.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because some people resonate more with animals. Like I don't want to deal with people. I deal with people enough. I don't want to deal with like a person entity. But love animals, right? So I think it's great. And there's no right or wrong. It's just, it is whatever your truth, you, the viewer's truth is. And that's perfect.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered it pretty well. So it's
Beautiful.
always fun to talk about spirit guides.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. If anybody has any more questions or would like to reach out to myself or to Laura, you can do so. Our links are in the description of this episode. Remember that your spirit guides are just your mind's eye away. They're right there. You can experience them. You just have to figure out how you do it for yourself. Our sponsor today is the Butterfly Lotus Company. Go and check their introduction to spiritual gifts and abilities. If you are a newbie spiritually awakened individual and want to learn what your spiritual foundations are and build on your spiritual journey, that includes your purpose and everything else, you can go find that through the Butterfly Lotus Company. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, lots of love, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening. If you're interested in being a guest speaker, blogger, sponsor, or if you want to see a topic featured on the show, please reach out to us at justalivetv.com. You can find us all across social media. Give us a like, follow, and share. And I, Melissa Krechler, will see you guys next time. Bye.